I spent my whole life being treated unfairly because of my golden child sister. At last, I got my perfect revenge on my wedding day. Hook! First 10 seconds. Can you imagine your own sister trying to steal your wedding day? Not just ruin it, but physically take over as the bride? It sounds like something out of a bad movie, right? But for me, it was my entire life, and it all built up to this one unbelievable moment of revenge. Growing up, I was always the other child. My older sister? Oh, she was the golden child. Everything revolved around her, always. If she accused me of something, even if it was a ridiculous lie, my parents believed her without question. I'd be punished, grounded, the works. But if I had undeniable proof of her wrongdoing, suddenly it was light teasing, or I'd get a lecture about being a good sister. It was maddening. My birthday cake? Always her favorite flavor, even though they knew I hated it. Gifts? Hers were always bigger, better, more numerous. Family outings? Wherever she wanted to go, even if it was supposed to be my special day. My sister learned very quickly that she could get away with anything. She used me as her personal punching bag, emotionally and sometimes physically. When we hit our teens, things got worse. She started losing friends, probably because she was just so, mean. I wouldn't know for sure. We were never close. My parents never mentioned her social struggles, only her achievements. But they were always quick to highlight my flaws, turning them into family jokes. I knew she had no friends because we went to the same school, and it was obvious. I was actually pretty popular, and that's when it clicked for her. She saw my popularity, my friends, and suddenly I wasn't just an occasional target anymore. I was a problem to be eliminated. She started making up wilder stories about me and my friends. My parents, of course, believed every word. They'd say things like, "Those friends aren't good people, your sister says so," or "Why are you trying to leave us? Why can't you be like your sister and enjoy family time?" I was slowly being isolated. What saved me from complete loneliness was my extended family. Most of them lived in our hometown, and I was close with my cousins. One day at a family gathering, they asked me to hang out, and I just blurted out, "I can't. I'm not allowed to have friends because my sister doesn't have any." My kid self was just so fed up I didn't hold back. Well, that little bombshell got back to the adults. Apparently, my parents got an earful. I was grounded for a month, scolded for lying, typical. But after that, things shifted. They gave me a little more leash. It was worth it. As for my sister, the humiliation of the whole family, knowing she had no friends, was too much. She demanded a school transfer. My parents, being my parents, immediately obliged, even though it cost them more money and time. She made new friends there, but she never went back to ignoring me. She had felt the power she had over my life, and she was furious that I'd exposed her. My life remained difficult. Her new friends would come over and bully me, which my parents called light teasing. I never invited my own friends over because my parents were awful hosts, or my sister would accuse them of stealing. My cousins, though, they were my rock. My parents never dared to treat family badly. Then came my first boyfriend. I really didn't want to bring him home, but my parents insisted. At one point, he came to find me, looking completely bewildered. My sister, he said, had cornered him. Skimpy clothing, batting eyelashes, telling him how awful I was and how amazing she was. He was totally weirded out and just wanted to find me. Of course, my sister's version to my parents. My boyfriend tried to flirt with her, but she, being the virtuous soul she was, naturally refused him because she couldn't do that to me. Guess who my parents believed? My boyfriend wasn't perfect, but I believed him instantly. Why? Because I was a resentful, moody teenager who hated my sister as much as she hated me. Looks weren't even a factor here. My parents were overweight and showed love through food, so my sister was also overweight. I was naturally skinny, partly because punishment often meant no treats. Even then, my sister was just rude and spoiled. Her flirting attempts were awful because she'd never learned to work for anything. My self-conscious teen self knew there was no way he'd actually try to cheat on me with her. So my parents forbade me from dating such a horrible boy. That relationship couldn't survive the Romeo and Juliet situation, and it ended. Another boyfriend, same story. Sister's advances, his polite refusal, her accusations, parents' belief. They decided I was incapable of making good choices and kept picking bad boyfriends. Eventually, I became known in high school as someone who was fine making out, but refused actual relationships. Luckily, that never got back to my parents or sister. My sister, meanwhile, brought home one boyfriend. He was paraded around like a prize. My parents constantly told me how wonderful he was, asking why I couldn't find someone like that. Then he just stopped showing up. Suddenly, he was a conniving bastard who tricked my sister. Oh well, the unequal treatment persisted. She had more spending money, better curfews. She was free, I was not. If I pointed it out, they'd say, because she's older. But when I reached that age, no change. They'd deny saying it or claim it was because I couldn't be trusted, citing my sister's accusations. Time flew by. It was my sister's graduation. She got into a college, not a great one, no scholarship. I only knew her achievements, never her failures. Her grades were generally bad. A B was cause for celebration. My good grades? What's there to celebrate? You always get those. My parents, naturally, made a huge fanfare about her college. They'd pay for everything. I was so relieved she'd be gone. But it didn't make my life easier. She'd come home every other weekend, and suddenly, things would be missing from my room, or she'd invent some new drama. My curfews remained strict. Then my mom sat me down. I'm only a year younger than my sister, you know. She told me that since they were paying for my sister's college, they had no money for mine. I should just start working after graduation, wait for my sister to finish, and then maybe they could afford something for me. Oh, and if I wanted to stay home, I'd have to pay bills and rent. I mentioned student loans. Mom said, yes, but no, because they were so caring and I had such bad judgment they would decide if a college was worth getting into debt for. I just looked at her. I didn't bat an eyelid. I just said, okay. My mom clearly didn't expect that. She kept crying, probably hoping I'd throw a tantrum so they'd have an excuse. But I just said I understood their position, thanked them for caring, and that was that. My dad tried the same act later. I refused to give him any emotion either. You see, after a lifetime of their twisted parenting, I had no expectations for my education. I knew they'd find an excuse. I knew they'd never pay. I had been preparing for college for a long, long time. I could barely go out, my friendships were fragile. So I had a lot of time to study. And study I did. I saw college as my only escape. The time came and I worked my butt off. I got a full scholarship, not to an Ivy League or a top law school, but a really good program at a decent college. Full ride, knowing my sister would hate this and try to use my parents to stop me. I put my achievement on social media immediately, and I forced myself to thank my parents in the post. Now, they couldn't forbid me from going without explaining to the entire family why. Initially, they were even a little proud, boasted about it. But then, I guess my sister got to them. They changed gears, asked if I was sure I wanted to go. They let slip that my sister wasn't doing well, and since she was smarter and had better judgment than me, I'd suffer even worse. I stuck to my guns. They weren't happy, but they couldn't do anything. College was my savior. I finally started being happy. I still contacted my parents, visited for holidays, but since they refused to pay for anything, I had plenty of excuses to avoid going home often, blaming money issues. During this time, I carefully avoided introducing any man to them. Meanwhile, my sister stopped going to college. No fanfare, so I know she never graduated. She moved back home, paying no bills, no rent. It's different, my parents said. She started working at my mom's company, thanks to my mom pulling strings. All of this was presented to me as a point of pride. Almost there, I promise. This is where my husband comes in. You know, those people who say, if I were in that situation, I'd have done something. My husband, he's the type who actually does. Me, I'm the meek doormat who cries when I'm angry and replays every conversation, wishing I'd said something witty. My husband, he claps back immediately. He loves drama, loves resolving it. If he doesn't reply to a slight right away, you better be worried, because he's planning something much worse for revenge. He's the one who wanted me to tell the story and wanted to post it on a nuclear revenge board, but decided what we did wasn't nuclear enough for him. People often wondered how I ended up with him, but just because I couldn't act like him didn't mean I didn't love that he could. He treats people well, as long as they do the same to him. When we discussed marriage, we didn't care much for a big ceremony. Our budget? We'd rather spend it on a dream trip to Europe for our honeymoon. His family was spread out, mine was concentrated in my hometown, so we decided to marry there. We weren't living far, so we could handle planning on weekends. We sent out the engagement announcement and saved the date. At this point, my parents naturally demanded to meet my man. I wanted to grow a spine and refuse, but it was hard. The distance had made me think maybe they weren't so bad. My husband, though, looked like I'd canceled Christmas when I told him I'd ensure they were never alone with him. See, he had been preparing for this. He bought a high-quality hidden recorder. He was practically buzzing, thinking of all the ways he could refuse my sister's advances, insult her, and then spread the recording. He was stoked. So off he went alone and excited. He came back later, absolutely euphoric. Babe, you won't believe the awful things they wanted. Babe, we can screw them over so bad. So many possibilities. I was confused. I wanted to hear the recording right then, but he smartly said it was better if I heard him first or I'd misunderstand. He said he went there, and instead of flirting, my parents and sister sat him down. After some grumbling about not being okay with him and my bad judgment, they proclaimed they were willing to pay for my wedding, on one condition. My sister would walk down the aisle, first, in a wedding dress. Their excuse? It wasn't okay for a younger sister to marry first. So it was only fair if my sister at least got the experience of it at my venue with pictures, and she'd even have a cake later. My husband recounted this with a huge grin on his face, the recording ready to prove it. I was in shock. The distance had genuinely softened how badly I thought they treated me. I thought even they wouldn't go this far. Thankfully, my husband, insisting on the revenge angle, helped me not spiral into a dark headspace. We had a blast brainstorming ways to screw them over, from laughably outlandish to surprisingly feasible. We then called his much more level-headed brother. When we decided on a plan, it involved things like fake venue addresses. But his brother, bless his sensible heart, scolded us. He knew he couldn't stop our retaliation, but he pointed out how hard some of our ideas would be to pull off, and how others could even get us sued. So we settled on the most benign plan. Act like we agreed, then hire security and don't let her in. But if that was all we did, it wouldn't be pro-revenge, right? The rest, well, that's mostly my husband's doing, but he insists I tell it. Everything he did was discussed with me, our mutual ideas. He went back to my parents. He claimed he'd probe me, and I probably wouldn't be down with it. However, he didn't see the issue, and not wanting the family to fall apart, he would be down to help them do it. He pointed out that I don't like conflict, so if I was surprised by it, I might not throw a tantrum in front of everyone. But on the other hand, marriage is a big thing, so who knew if I'd lash out? So he suggested a compromise they'd help pay for stuff. That way, I'd feel even more pressure not to say anything. Not just because our families would be there, but because I'd be grateful for their help. My parents apparently looked shocked, and my grown sister literally started skipping with joy like a kid. So it was accepted. Importantly, my husband also claimed that due to my bad judgment and past boyfriends, and I am so proud he used their own words against them, I was distrustful and controlling, and liked to check his phone and stuff to ensure he wasn't cheating. As such, it was imperative that nothing about this plan was ever put in writing. Any discussion about my sister walking down the aisle before me, he'd go over to their house to talk. And so began months of deception, where my parents and sister thought they were tricking me, while my husband and I were absolutely milking them. They certainly did not lay low on paying for the wedding. My parents wanted input on everything, including things that meant a lot to me, like songs and color palettes. My husband would convince them to let it go, to keep me in line. But since we never really cared for the ceremony to begin with, everything else was fair game. Or so they thought. Here's how we did it. We'd go to check out drink and menu options, and then accept the lowest or second lowest priced option. My husband would then secretly take my sister there to try it out. He'd sigh and say, "It's a pity we don't want to abuse your parents' goodwill, so we won't get the best options." Cue my sister demanding my parents pay for the best. My parents would then tell me not to worry. They'd pay for the most expensive option. Same with the photographer and flowers. My husband handed my sister a bouquet of the flowers we wanted, then sadly expressed how I wanted some other tasteless flowers. Cue my parents telling me they wanted us to go with those flowers and they'd pay for it. The wedding dress was a minor snag. My parents wanted me to use this hideous dress. Okay, maybe not outright hideous, but definitely not my style, and it wouldn't have looked good on me. We'd planned to just say yes and not use it, but my mom actually sent me a message about it, so there was proof. I had to refuse via text and stand my ground. My husband went over there and said he'd see what he could do. My sister, of course, suggested ruining my desired dress, so I'd be forced to wear the other one. He pretended to agree. Throughout all this, they kept communications verbal, ensuring nothing was in writing. My husband insisted on me replying to my sister whenever she tried to message him, solidifying his uncontrolling and neurotic claims. They believed it and never risked anything in writing. Some people might not like their partner talking badly about them, but I'm such a doormat that being painted as this controlling and dangerous person was actually hilarious to me. I egged him on. Oh, and my sister did try to flirt with him, but he just acted conflicted to really sell his loyalty to them. He'd pretend to tell them things without my knowledge, but he never told them we hired security. It was genuinely funny. My husband and I, who had sincerely considered a courthouse wedding to save money for our honeymoon, ended up with this extravagant, expensive wedding, and we barely spent a dime. We called it back pay for emotional damages from my parents. My husband was probably enjoying the whole trick more than planning our wedding. I didn't think it was possible to witness a guy beaming at the thought of wasting his whole Saturday doing a car trip to discuss wedding details with his in-laws, but here we were. Soon the day came. The plan my parents, sister, and husband had concocted was to wait until everyone was seated. Since the bride always comes out late, they'd have my sister arrive at that precise time, avoiding me and my attempts to stop it. She'd walk down the aisle, and by the time I heard what happened, it would be too late to do anything. As for my dress, we saved some leftover fabric for my alterations. My husband took that to my parents' place, showed it as proof he'd ruined the dress, then said he had to go back to me because I was raging and he needed to calm me down. He told them he'd see them at the wedding. We made sure to keep our real security hidden initially. As guests and my parents arrived, they only saw a sweet woman with a list of names to check. Only after my parents had settled in did we bring out the actual security, a guy who looked like a bodyguard. We instructed him not to let my sister in and promised a very generous tip if he kept our instructions confidential. Soon the moment arrived. My parents got a text that my sister was less than 5 minutes away. My dad signaled for the ceremony to start. My bridesmaids, pre-briefed to follow his lead, did so without checking with me. After they all took their places, my dad stood at the entrance, waiting for me. During this, a friend, not in the wedding party, but as eager for drama as my husband, texted me to get ready. As soon as my dad took his position, the bridal song began. The doors opened and I entered. My dad was shocked to see me. He tried to look behind me, but couldn't see the venue entrance from where he was. He had no idea what had happened to my sister. Then his phone rang. I saw the caller ID. It was her. He left me with a mumbled, "Something came up." Gasps and confusion filled the room. My friend, who was in on the plan, loudly asked, "What happened?" I lied tearfully. He told me it wasn't supposed to be me there. My husband and I had agreed. If my dad abandoned me, I should say that to make him look as bad as possible. The tears weren't just acting, you guys. I was genuinely hurt and trying not to cry. The friend then loudly asked, "What did he mean by it shouldn't be you?" So everyone could hear and spread the rumor. Then she declared, "I will go and check," and ran off. This was planned to create chaos with the security and prevent my dad from returning to stop the ceremony. Eventually, my mom also left. At this point, my husband's dad, who had been forewarned he might need to step in, quickly ran over and took my arm. His desperate run to me actually made me smile through my tears. I walked down the aisle to whispers as people discussed what had happened. Some even left to check things out. When I reached my husband, all was well. He comforted me, joking that my sad face was so real I deserved an Oscar, and he reassured me he'd deal with my parents for what they'd done. We got married without any further issues. My parents never came back. I noticed a lot of people leaving and returning during the party, but no one dared tell me what was happening. Someone whispered in my husband's ear, and he went out. He returned later with a thunderous expression, but whispered to me that he needed to go hide before he broke character and started smiling. Oh, it worked. Here's the summary I got afterwards from friends, family, the security guy, and my husband. My sister arrived in a wedding dress. The security refused to let her in, just as we agreed. He told her she must be at the wrong venue, because there was already a bride. Yes, we tipped him very well. My dad tried threatening him with the police, claiming he'd never heard of him. The security guard calmly agreed to call the police since he was just doing his job, hired by us. My dad realized it would be too late and tried to demand my sister be let in. At this point, my friend came over, started shouting and insulting my sister, asking what was going on, basically just stalling. My mom soon arrived, followed by others. By then, their entire twisted wedding plan was ruined. All my parents could do was damage control, as everyone who learned about it was horrified they'd try to pull such a thing. People started screaming and berating them. The three of them naturally claimed it wasn't a secret and blamed my husband. When he was called over, my husband put on his best confused look and denied everything. To quote him, it was all gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss, LOL. He denied ever agreeing to such a ridiculous plan. When they insisted he demanded proof. And, of course, they couldn't provide any. All the text exchanges they could show were about normal wedding decisions. My sister was screaming, crying, and apparently sat on the floor, kicking her legs like a child. My dad looked like he wanted to hit my husband, but security and other people held him back. Naturally, they claimed they had no proof because my husband told them not to text. My husband just laughed and said, "Wow, how convenient, huh?" Then he repeated, "Why would I ever agree to something so messed up?" He ripped into them about being terrible parents and declared he wasn't going to let their stupid plans and lies ruin his wedding. Then he came back to me. No one believed them. The venue had cameras, but they wouldn't show me the recording. However, some people filmed parts of it. Watching my parents and sister get torn apart by everyone who came out to see the drama was absolutely delightful. After years of being accused of things and never being believed, seeing them get a taste of their own medicine was one of the best wedding gifts. My mother was crying. My dad kept changing from purple to white, and my sister was still on the floor, crying and screaming. They kept insisting my husband wasn't on it, but people kept asking why he would agree, why there was no proof, and why they wanted my sister to do this at my wedding. They had no good answers. Eventually, they were told to leave and had no choice. My dad apparently had to drag my sister up, as she refused to leave the ground. Again, no one said anything to me all night. I guess they wanted to spare me, and maybe it's because I was the bride, not just a guest for once, but it truly felt like everyone was making an extra effort to be nice, positive, and excited about everything. My husband says all the expensive food and drinks they were eating certainly helped, LOL. We had a blast. My husband kept up the forced, angry face for only a short while before breaking out in smiles again. After that, we went to the hotel to catch some sleep before heading off on our honeymoon. Speaking of which, my parents did try to pay for our plane tickets, but we thought that was risky. They could try to cancel them or something, so we refused. Since then, the three of them have tried to contact me. I've refused calls because my husband insisted on keeping a paper trail. A smart move, because my sister eventually messaged me. I won't repeat what she said, it was completely unhinged and made no sense. But the important part was that she blamed me for her humiliation, called my husband a two-faced snake who fooled them for months. He wants to print and hang that on our wall, LOL, and was certain that I'd get cheated on by him. She even suggested he was cheating on me with her. My husband took my phone, screenshot the call logs, my sister's messages, and some messages from my parents demanding I pick up the phone. He sent it all to our family group chat. He also sent screenshots of messages to him where they called him names and threatened him. But he kept up the delusional I never agreed to anything shtick and even threatened to sue them for defamation and harassment. He wrote a message in the group chat begging my family for help, claiming I was now being harassed by them constantly. He pleaded with them to stop my parents and sister from ruining our honeymoon after they failed to ruin our wedding. He ended with a request that they not share our locations, to prevent my parents from sending my sister over and claiming he had somehow agreed to pretend to sleep with her in our honeymoon suite. LOL. My family assured him they'd handle it, and since then we've had peace. My husband's a bit disappointed that my sister didn't disobey, so he could call her out again while tearing her a new one. We'll see if the peace lasts. All in all, while I would have preferred a normal, loving family at my wedding, at least for once in my life, they not only failed to ruin something meaningful to me, but I got back at them. Do I know why they treated me like this? People ask me that a lot. I've pondered it my entire life and still don't truly know. When I was young, I tried asking, but they deny any difference and scold me for being spoiled. So I stopped. I've considered many possibilities, but based on my observations, I think it's this. I was unplanned. They took a while to have my sister, so she was not only wanted, but like a miracle child. Given our small age difference, I think they didn't expect another child so soon or easily, and maybe didn't use adequate protection after her birth. They probably didn't realize my mom was pregnant until it was too late. So they were saddled with an unplanned baby while still dealing with a newborn. They weren't well off, so the extra expense likely didn't help. They probably resented me, but that's just my conjecture. Regardless, I've accepted that the reason won't truly matter. What they did to me was unwarranted, no matter what. And did they really think this would work? My husband and I have a theory. They never intended to go through with it at all. We think my sister threw a huge tantrum over me getting married first, when she barely gets dates. To appease her, my parents made my husband that outlandish proposition. They didn't want to pay for my wedding, and they didn't think we'd accept. By suggesting it and being refused, they could look like the good guys to my sister while having an excuse not to give me a dime. But then my husband accepted it, and they couldn't backtrack without risking my sister turning on them. So what do you guys think? Have you ever dealt with family manipulation this extreme? Or, if you're like my husband, what kind of nuclear revenge would you have cooked up? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts.